Hello, my darlings. Welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, a warm welcome to you. Sabrina-Siobhan is a lifestyle channel, and I create content relating to entertainment, fashion, health and fitness, weight loss, personal development, and pure positivity. So, if that sounds like something that you're interested in, click the subscribe button below so you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. Hello, my darlings. In today's video, we are doing a recap of Love is Blind USA Season 6, Episode 2. Before I go any further, this is a warning. There will be spoilers in this video. I repeat again, there will be spoilers in this video. So if you haven't yet watched Episode 2 and you don't want to hear any spoilers, please don't watch just yet, but watch this after you've watched episode 2. Is love really blind? Is love really blind? Let's find out. The opening scene of episode 2 starts with Jeremy, Matthew, and Trevor. So it seems like the guys are keeping their cards quite close to their chest. Or rather, shall I say, Matthew is keeping his cards quite close to his chest and he hasn't revealed who he's got a connection with. Jeremy and Trevor are teasing him and they're saying, oh, we've heard who you're talking to. We know who you've got a connection with. We found out from, one of the girls. And Matt's acting all coy and shy and like, stop it, guys. And, not kind of giving them any kind of inkling about who it is. He ain't saying nothing, but you get a bit of a sense that the guys know that Matt is a bit of an underdog. Anyway, fast forward to the first set of dates. First set of dates are with Jeremy and Laura. So Jeremy is 32 and he is an intralogistic. I'm not quite sure what that is. And Laura is 34 and she's an account director. Before Jeremy entered the pod, he was like, I want a girl with a big personality. That's the life and soul of the party. He seems quite full of himself and, I've got to say, from the jump, it's the first person that I've said this about, but from the jump, he seems a bit cocky, or rather, I think he seems a bit full of himself. Anyway, he has a first date with Laura, and he walks into the room calling Laura Sarah, and she's like, what the hell, have you forgot my name? And he's like, I'm only joking, I haven't forgot your name, I know what your name is. And she's like, really? Are you sure? And he's like, yeah, it's Sarah. It's Laura, sorry. And she's like, okay. And, anyway, have a bit of banter and, they're chatting and vibes-ing and, they both connect on the fact that they've got OCD, or she once had OCD, and they don't like, anything messy. So they're talking, but nothing really to write home about with those two. She leaves the date. Laura leaves the date and goes back into the ladies' quarters, and she's having a conversation with the girls about the date, and she's like, I actually like him. So I don't think this is their first date. She was like, I actually like him, and I've really been thinking about him, but I've got to check myself because I'm not 100% sure. And furthermore, he called me another woman's name, and if he's calling me somebody else's name, that must be the person that he's really thinking about. So that was that, and I'm glad that she highlighted that because I didn't like that at all. I don't think it's funny, but I think he thinks he's funny, I just get that kind of vibe from him. Anyway, Sarah Ann and Jeremy have their date. So it looks like he quite likes Sarah Ann. She walks into the room and the first thing he said was, I called someone else your name today. And she's like, what? And he was like, yep, I've been thinking about you. And, they start chatting and, they're discussing their ideals, and he, what kind of dates, would we go on, and what will our weekends look like. And, she starts painting a really nice picture, and, he's liking it, and, he's like, I can see a future with you. And he just really starts laying it on thick, but he starts flexing up himself because he's like, you could move into my 4-bedroom house, and it's not, I don't own the house because I've just sold my house, and I'm not ready to buy new property yet. I want to buy it with, the woman that I marry, and all of this business is laying it on really thick. But to be fair, these two seem to be getting on. We then move on to Amy and Johnny, who are on another date, and these two are still vibing. Everything's right, and their relationship is just continuing to grow. And he asks her a question, and he says, what is your biggest fear? And she said, my biggest fear is something happening to my brother. And she then goes on to reveal that basically her brother she's really close to her brother, and she mentioned that in episode 1. And she said her brother has got autism, and by the sounds of things, he doesn't take complete care of himself. I believe his dad is his current carer. So she was saying if anything happens to her dad, then she would be, next in line to take on responsibility of looking after her brother. And, any man that she's with, her husband, she would hope that he would accept that. And if for any reason he needed to live with them, for, a short period of time, she would hope that, the man she's with would understand that and just has that family connection. And she started, crying, and it was a bit emotional. And, Johnny was like, I completely understand, like, I'm that person, like, I love that you love, your family in that way, and, I would 100%, support it. So that was a really nice moment between the two. And I feel like I was waiting for her to kind of reveal a bit more about herself and her family dynamic, because I did feel like there was something under the lid with her. And to be fair, I feel like there's some more that, we're going to hear about her, because I don't know, I just feel like she's a bit of a quiet storm, Amy is. There's something under the lid, and I feel like this is not the end of it. We then see a moment in the ladies' quarters between AD and Alexandra, and AD is basically explaining to Alexandra that she feels absolutely betrayed, and she feels just completely played by Matthew, and she just can't believe what's going on. And she's saying that she doesn't trust any of the guys in here, and she just, she can't believe what any of them are saying. They're basically likening them to the guys on the outside. She then went on to explain to Alexandra, what Amber said to her, and, basically that Matthew said verbatim what he said to her to Amber, and also brought Clay up and said, even though Clay has got his issues, he's willing to work on it, but I'm also not willing to, give in to his demands. I'm not going to do it. So you could see she was very rattled, and she was just kind of like, what the fuck? Like, we're here to find love. I can't believe I've got myself in this, kind of pickle again. AD and Matthew end up on a date, and AD basically confronts Matthew, and she's like, you've been speaking to Amber, and you literally said word for word to her what you said to me. What the fuck, basically. And trying to defend himself, and he was like, I didn't say, it word for word, like there were differences. My connection with her wasn't as deep as it was, or as it is, with you. And, at the end of the day, it's all recorded. You can listen back to it. Why would I lie? She was just listening, to be honest with you. She was really taking in what he said. And here's where it got a bit calculated, because or what I think was a bit calculated anyway, because he was like, you know, I know for you that me proposing to you would be, you know, the most romantic thing, and I know that it's the thing that you want, and I know that you thought that there was a high probability that I was going to propose to you, and I want to give that to you, basically. And then he started saying, "You've been talking to other guys too?" And turned it around on her. And he was like, you know, you've got to understand, I'm going to get jealous of the fact that you're talking to other guys too. And, you know, it's a two-way street. This guy's a bit calculated, a bit more calculated than I first thought, to be honest with you. And I actually don't think he's on the spectrum. I actually think he's playing a dangerous game. It's actually coming across now more sinister than innocent, if that makes sense. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit disappointed with AD because she's so smitten with him, she just sat there and just lapped it up, if that makes sense. And she was just taking it in, and he was just like, look, I need to make some decisions. I want to be there for you, and I want to give you your dreams, but, you know, bear with me. Like, I'm gonna make a decision, and, you know, I'm gonna make my decision tomorrow. Don't give up on me. Can you wait for me? And she's like, you know, I am, like, you know, I've opened up to you, I care for you, and, you know, I'm bearing all, basically. I'm gonna wait. So their conversation ends. AD then ends up on a date with Clay. And Clay walked into the room and he was like, you know what, I'm really sorry for asking you the questions about, you know, your physicality. You know, this whole Playboy act of mine is a persona. You know, really, I'm a nerd. You know, this isn't me. It's just a persona. You know, it makes me feel comfortable. And then she was like, oh, started getting smitten by him and was like, oh, you're making me emotional. And, you know, you feel like home, Clay. And, you know, just ultimately saying, I really like you, but the reality is you remind me of all the fuckboys that I've been with, you know, in the past. But I'm really feeling you. And then she said, oh my God, I've been on such an emotional roller coaster today. This is mad. And he was like, oh, you know, what's going on? She then starts to tell him, break down everything that's happened between her and Matt. But she didn't mention Matt's name. Next thing you know, he's like, who am I in a love triangle with? And she was like, Matthew. And he was like, Matthew? What? Matthew? And then he just looked absolutely disgusted, and his ego literally took over the whole size of the room because he went insane. He was like, what the fuck, AD? Matthew, you are going to regret it. You don't want anything with him. Oh my God, haven't I given you enough? Haven't I shared enough? Like, haven't I given you, you know, myself? How can you be telling me this? How can you be telling me that you've got more of a connection with him? And literally, Clay just started going crazy. And I mean crazy. It was actually quite rude because he just wasn't taking her feelings into consideration. And he was ultimately turning everything back round, you know, to himself, acting really needy and, you know, acting like he wanted her to reassure him in that moment when, at the end of the day, she was the one that said, I've been on an emotional roller coaster today. You know, everything's a bit crazy for me. And, he was really annoyed anyway, and you know, he was like, you're gonna regret it. Look, I've been here for you. I've told you that I'm rolling with you. I thought that you felt the same, but obviously I was wrong. And, you know, she was like, look, I haven't even got the words right now to reassure you of anything. You know, I don't know what you want me to do. And he was like, well, just give me some assurance that, this is gonna, work out. He was sounding really desperate. And she was being really honest. She was being really honest, and he was sounding really desperate, I think, and really needy. And I feel like, again, that says a lot about him. But I feel like I did kind of detect that he had this kind of side to him, from episode 1, because I just weren't 100% with him at all. I really feel like he does give off fuckboy vibes. So sorry. He apologized for being aggressive. To be honest, he did apologize for being aggressive, and he was just like, "Look, I'm not going to continue this conversation anymore, and I'm sorry that I acted up, but yeah, let's just speak tomorrow, and I hope you can make a decision on what it is you really want." And then he left the room, and she was obviously in bits. I felt sorry for her, to be honest with you, because I don't really feel like she expected him to react the way he did. But at the same time, I'm thinking, a guy like him, what would you expect? Because he leads with his ego, Anyway, the scene then moved on to AD, Amber, and Alexandra having a conversation. And AD basically was just exhausted, and she was like, every guy I've spoken to today has made me cry. And they were like, oh my God, how, why, what's happened? And AD then started to explain what happened between her and Clay. Amber is listening, and she's like, wait, what did you say? And obviously, she's perking up to the fact that AD's making reference to Matthew's words, and she's like, wait, what's going on? And AD basically starts to just reel off everything to her, and was just like, look, I know you've been speaking to Matthew, and I've been speaking to him too, and everything that he said to you, it seems like he said the same to me. And I've confronted him about it, and basically he lied. And she was like, what the hell? Like, my worst fears have been realised. I cannot believe this. And then they literally basically sat down and had a bit of a heart-to-heart, compared notes. He said to both of them, call your dad and hand in marriage, I want to leave with you tonight. He said those words to both of the women, and were just disgusted with everything. And Amber was just basically like, I'm really sorry that this is to you, and at the end of the day, I love you and I respect you as a person. It was really reminiscent of the scene between Aaliyah and Lydia, when Lydia or Aaliyah, well, when Lydia told Aaliyah about Uche, or when Aaliyah found out about Uche and Lydia, sorry. It was really reminiscent of that scene. And Amber was like, I'm just going to bow out now. And she then proceeds, after that scene, to actually leave the show, which I found to be quite odd, if I'm completely honest, because I thought, why did you have to leave? There's been other women on the show that have been in love triangles, like it's a common thing, but they don't just leave, if that makes sense. So I found that a bit odd. Okay, it might be because of the fact that she didn't have anybody else, but I just found it odd that she would just leave there and then. I found that really odd. Anyway, she left after that scene. I guess, to be honest, because she did say, I'm not going to be treated like a joke. So I guess, she was like, this is serious to me. Well, it is serious, isn't it, at the end of the day? The scene then switches to the men's quarters, and Clay is having a conversation with Drake and Kenneth, and he's literally explaining he feels blindsided by what's happened, and he just can't believe that he's a love triangle, or he's in competition with a man like Matthew. He's not even in his caliber. I think he's just more disgusted by the fact that Matthew is not in his caliber. I don't think he said the words caliber, but he literally meant that. We then seen for the first time Kenneth and Brittany on a date. So Kenneth is 26 and is a middle school principal, and Brittany is 25 and is a senior client partner. These two seem to be getting on really, really well because I think they were both teachers in common. So he's a current teacher and she used to be a teacher. So they had that in common and they seemed to connect on that point. Furthermore, whilst their conversation was going on, it transpires that they've both lost parents as children. So I think he lost his mum when he was a young child and she lost her dad when she was a young child. Kenneth's a bit of an old soul, and they both, seem to share the same, passion and religion, and these two seem to have quite a bit in common. Scene then moved on to Johnny and Amy on a sushi date, and again, these two are just getting along infamously like a house on fire. I feel like things are just flowing between them. Johnny is really soppy and he seems to be really smitten with her. It does seem genuine, but part of me thinks, is there something under the hood with him? Just like how I thought there was something under the lid with her, part of me thinks, is there something under the hood with him too? He said, look, I love you just the way you are, and that's it. And he was like, whoa, I said I love you. And she was like, oh my God. And she was like, I love you too. And, they both said, I love you for the first time. Fast forward to Jimmy and Chelsea on their date. Since the last time they spoke and things went a bit left because she told him that she was married. So Jimmy basically apologized and he was like, look, on that day I had a lot to take in. I got delivered a lot of news and it was just a lot to take in, and it really wasn't nothing against you. You being married in the past isn't a deal breaker, and I still want to move on and continue to get to know you basically. And after the way he treated her in the last day, I really thought that she was going to be a bit offish with him, but to be fair, she does seem to like him, which is surprising me because I really feel like she's got more of a connection with Trevor. She started to get a bit cheeky because she was like, which celebrity do you look like? And she then proceeded to say that people say she looks like Megan Fox, which I found to be a bit cheeky at this point because I thought, why are you starting to discuss physicality? Kind of felt a bit desperate, if you like. Kind of felt like she was clutching at straws. But I think the reason she started talking about appearance is because obviously he had mentioned to her, look, I heard some big news on the day that me and you spoke and it just threw me for a loop. And if she didn't have confirmation that he was speaking to Jessica before, that was probably the confirmation that he was speaking to Jessica, and she'd obviously told him that she's got a 10-year-old daughter. So something's telling me that she feels threatened by Jessica, and obviously she knows that these two have got a connection. That's what I think anyway. I don't know for sure, but that's what I think anyway. In the next scene, Jimmy and Jessica end up on a date with each other, and Jessica's quite emotional, and she's now that she's told him that she's got a daughter and everything, and everything's out in the open, she's being really open, and she's just I think she was crying, and she was saying she misses her daughter, and he was consoling her and asking her questions about her daughter, what's she like, what's she into, and to be fair, even though his response was genuine. He was genuinely consoling her. I kind of felt like, was he forcing himself to ask these questions? Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Is this a deal breaker for him in reality or not? I'm not sure. But he then went on to say, they then went to talk on he then went on to say, do you want more kids? Because my mom, I know my family want me to have kids, And she was like, yeah, I definitely want to have, more kids. And she started going, telling him about her family life and telling him that, she was adopted at 16 because both of her parents were drug addicts. Her dad committed suicide, and I think her mom ended up giving her away, I believe. So she was adopted, and then she went into foster care and was adopted at 16. And her adoptive parents are, practically saved her life. And I feel like her explaining, her upbringing and what she's been through, just kind of shows why she's so emotional about her own daughter, and also as well why she's so connected, because she's had a bit of a difficult upbringing. And he then went on to explain that he has an adopted sister, and how his mom adopted his dad's first child, I think it was. And then, Jess was like, oh my God, I've got so much love and admiration for your mom, to adopt a child, because, I come from, an adopted family. So I feel like that kind of built more of a, stronger bond between them. And he was just like, I like you a lot more now because, I'm hearing about, your experiences. So I'm guessing that he was probably just waiting to hear the full 100 from her, Trevor and Chelsea then end up on another date, but just before the date, Trevor was heard discussing about Chelsea, and he was just saying, you know what, I feel like she is the one for sure. And I really feel like she is the one for him, as I previously mentioned. Anyway, they end up on a date, and once more, they are just vibing and, connecting on things, and, it was nothing too serious, but, the connection continued. And again, Chelsea was acting really odd because she was trying to get confirmation on what the guy looks like. So she, I'm not sure where she heard it from, and I don't know whether it was a wild guess, but she was just like, have you got a mullet? And he was like, yeah. And she was like, no, seriously, have you got a mullet? And he was like, yeah, I have. And she was like, oh my God. And, she just kept trying to get him to, discuss more characteristics about himself. I'm not sure what that's about. What that's about. I feel like we're seeing Chelsea unravel a bit, if that makes sense. I don't know. It was just a bit odd. I didn't quite get that. Anyway, Johnny and Amy ended up on another date, and she walked into the pod to find that he got her some flowers, some peonies, and these two were he was just like, if I upset you or if I do anything wrong, always correct me and just promise me, we'll always be a team forever, and I love you. And he proposed, and I was like, woo, okay. So we got our first proposal, Johnny and Amy. And then we enter into the kicker of the final scene. So, back to the ladies' quarters. AD talking to Alexandra, and, she's like, right, I'm switching up the game now. I'm not going to be made a fool of by, Matthew or Clay. I'm taking, control. Fast forward to the showdown between AD and Matthew. So, AD and Matthew go on their date, and she walks into the room, and you can see that he's had an effect on her, to be honest, because she kind of went back to being a bit smitten, but she did stand her ground. He opens up with, Amber's left. And she's like, yeah, I heard. And he's like, I think it's because of me. She's like, what? She's like, that's a bit presumptuous, don't you think? And I'm thinking, why are you bringing up Amber when this is supposed to be about you and her? And anyway, so he then proceeds to talk about how America loves an underdog and they love a comeback story. And she's sitting there thinking, what the hell is this guy talking about? And literally, I'm like, no, is this guy serious? What the hell is going on? And so she kind of took the floor and she was just like, look, I want to be with you. And, I meant everything I said, but I feel like, this situation was manipulated. I don't know whether it was true. And he's there sniffing and snuffling, and she's like, wait, are you crying or have you got a cold? What's the situation? What's going on? And he was like, I've had a really shit day. And looking at him, he did not look like he had a shit day. He looked like he had an ordinary day, the same day as yesterday. And he then basically said, I don't think I can commit to the plan that you want. And, I can't do this. You don't deserve it. You deserve better. And she was just like, okay. And I feel like she kind of knew that response was coming. And he was like, I don't like, oh yeah, that's it. He said, I don't really like your tone of voice with me today. So probably because she weren't her usual playful self, because she did say before she went into the room, I'm taking no prisoners today, And he was like, I don't like your tone of voice today. You've changed. I can feel that you've changed towards me. And, if that's the case, I don't feel like I can go through with it. So he literally took the coward's, way out. This guy's really, really sinister. And he stood up for the whole time. He didn't sit down. He just seemed so... He was almost like a nasty prison warden. That's the vibes I was getting from him. He's very, very nasty indeed. And, he was like, I can't commit to you and, you deserve better. And I can't remember the exact words, but she was just like, okay, cool, fine, cool. You sound devastated, And he was like, I'm devastated that I broke. Oh yeah, so she was like, oh, what, so you're going to leave and go and be with Are you going to leave because of Amber? Backtrack, I'm just looking at my notes. So actually, what he said was, did you have a connection with somebody else? And she was like, yeah, I did. And then he was like, okay, I'm out. This guy is a true coward. So he was like, I'm out. I can't commit to the plan that you want, so I'm just gonna step out. And it's really sad that we couldn't go forward with this. I've never had a connection with anybody else like what I've had with you, and I'm sorry, but I can't do it. And she was like, it's unfortunate. And then she was like, you sound devastated. And then she asked, is it because of Amber? The man said yes, and then turned around and said, because I've broken somebody's heart on national TV. That was his response. This guy is cold and calculated. I actually can't believe what's happened here. He's really... something really awful about him, really sinister. I was seeing sinister ways earlier on, but this just took the cake, took the biscuit. This guy should be a meme. The man said, America's going to be watching. I don't get it. I don't get this guy. Poor AD. Poor AD. This girl has been through the ringer. My God. So, just to finish up, then the episode ended with Amy and Johnny preparing to propose. And she said she feels like 100% love is blind, and the episode ended there. So, okay, my darlings, quick first impressions and predictions. Jeremy and Laura, to be honest, I don't think this is a relationship that's going to go anywhere. Number one, as mentioned earlier, I think he is so cocky and rude, and I think she can see that for herself. I think she can see through him. I don't really feel like this connection is going to go much further. And furthermore, I actually feel like he likes Sarah Ann a bit more, because he was laying it on quite thick with her. But then again, I don't really feel like that was a genuine situation either. I just feel like it's his ego, and it was a bit of a chance for him to flex. Kenneth and Brittany, both of them were having a good conversation and they did seem to connect, but I feel like I'd need to see more of them before I can say anything else. I feel like there's something more than what meets the eye with Kenneth. I don't know. He looks like he might have something under the hood. So, we'll see. Amy and Johnny, I feel like they're a sure thing. I feel like she's obviously going to say yes, and they're going to sail through. Jimmy and Chelsea, I feel like Jimmy does have some sort of feelings for Chelsea, but I'm not quite sure why. And I almost now feel like Chelsea's playing a bit of a game. She doesn't seem to be as interested in Trevor as she is with Jimmy. And I'm not quite sure when the natural instincts for me, I feel like, lay towards him. Jimmy and Jess, I feel like they are a perfect match, but I don't 100% feel like he's completely comfortable with the fact that she's got a daughter. AD and Clay, to be continued. Amber's gone home, Matthew's gone home. As always, my darlings, thank you so much for watching. Please stay tuned because we've got episodes 3, 4, 5 and 6 to review. And at the end of episode 3 and episode 6, we've got a live chat. So turn on your notifications so you don't miss out on any upcoming content. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your predictions are. I'll see you in the next one. Mwah.